Hey folks, welcome again to Canada's Boxing Channel. So earlier on I was reading Sky Sports, which is reporting that the British Boxing Board of Control have come down somewhat, perhaps somewhat heavily, on Chris Eubank Jr. And they have fined him the sum of £100,000 for the incident involving him and Connor Benn. Now we will remember this bizarre ploy, marketing, fake beef, assault, egg salt, whatever you want to describe it as, when in the press conference ahead of their upcoming fight in April, Chris Eubank Jr. slapped Connor Benn across the side of the face and had an egg inside the palm of his hand, which broke on Connor Benn's face, and it was there was so much hoo-ha at the time. Allegations that the egg shell could have gone into his eyes. People were saying that it was an assault. Nigel Benn thought that Chris Eubank had glassed his son. And, there was much toing and froing between Eddie Hearn and Ben Shalom, and much wetting of panties, so to speak, about the whole incident. Many of us thought it was over-the-top marketing. Some of us thought it was very funny. Some thought it wasn't funny. Connor Benn appeared to actually, as he was leaving after the outburst of whatever burst, he appeared to be smiling as well. Now, just in case nobody really has been following this, the egg is meant to represent the fact that Connor Benn, who had failed a PED test and had clomiphene in his system, claimed that the reason that this prohibited substance was in his system was because he had over-ingested eggs, and therefore, we can assume that this was Chris Eubank's excellent way of pointing out the fatuousness, if you like, of the claim. So the egg, which was, I want to emphasize, not a hard-boiled egg, but in fact it appears to be a raw egg. Heavens knows if it had been a hard-boiled egg, what the penalty would have been. Anyhow, there was a hearing. The British Boxing Board of Control, clearly, full steam in righteous indignation, demanding that Eubank appeared in front of them. They had this hearing. I don't know if they listened to evidence from either side or not. I don't know what their processes are. But anyhow, they have released a statement. I'll read the statement in full. Following a hearing before the stewards of the British Boxing Board of Control, Chris Eubank Jr. was found to be in breach of Regulation 25, bracket, misconduct, close bracket, for his conduct at the press conference in Manchester for the Chris Eubank Jr. Connor Benn contest on April the 26th, 2025. As such, the stewards have fined Chris Eubank Jr. the sum of £100,000. Now, Ben Shalom, the promoter of Chris Eubank Jr., has said the sum was extremely, not extremely, over the top and out of all proportion. And he says that Chris Eubank, therefore, will have no choice but to appeal. One doesn't know really where to begin with this. The £100,000 is not an insignificant amount of money. I suspect that the real issue is not the breaking of the egg. Assault with a weapon or anything like that, but it is the laying of hands upon the other fighter. And from that perspective, Yes, I understand. If we're going to keep even a semblance of decorum at press conference, one should not be allowed to place hands on the other fighter at any instant, at any time outside of the boxing ring, right? So I get this. I also think, though, that, you know, if we're going to have these kinds of rules in place, with the potential of an administrative penalty being imposed upon somebody for breach of these rules, then it should be even-handed across the board. All such instances should be treated in like manner. And there's also then an obligation on everybody involved to dial it all back, to bring it to something like, for example, you know, how things used to be. Because this kind of buffoonery would never have happened some years ago. You know, many years ago, press conferences were very much like what we saw, for example, recently with Fisher and Allen. You know, two athletes basically saying, yeah, look, you know, we have a different perspective on how the last fights went. We're going to, you know, get it on in the ring. I respect you. You know, we'll sort out our differences. We'll have a fight, and then we'll see the, you know, may the best man win. All that sort of hearkening back to a more gentlemanly or more sportsmanlike era. When we have these sort of fake beef type fights, which are sort of being ginned up by everybody concerned, then we can't really sort of then sit back and say, oh my goodness, we're outraged that something like this happened. Because we're in that sort of area where it becomes a bit like the WWE, right? So, I mean, if the new norm is going to be a wind back or a walk back from the pantomime type things that we have seen, that's great. If not, then we have to have an even-handed approach for all of these type violations. That's my only sort of comments upon it. You know, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And I know they're both, you know, one of the, I guess ganders are not egg laying. I don't mean to continue any kind of poultry analogies here. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Before this gets out of hand, as it were. But that's what the British Boxing Board of Control have imposed upon Chris Eubank Jr. It's a £100,000 fine, and Chris Eubank Jr., through his promoter, has said that he's going to appeal that, as it is, again, extremely over the top and out of all proportion. So we'll see where this goes. Meanwhile, it remains a very expensive egg. There we are. Okay, folks, please like, please share, please subscribe, and I will see you on the next one. Thank you.